This is a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.
Good evening. Welcome to the Brighton Central School District Board of Education Executive Budget Proposal and Budget Hearing Meeting. We have a lot going on tonight, which I'm grateful for, as is the rest of the board. The agenda that went out, everything's going to stay on the agenda, but I have to reorder a bunch of things. We have board members that have full-time employment, including having to work at night, so with a board member needing to leave later this evening, I'll be moving some budget resolutions up front. I'll also note for the record that we put the public participation after both the budget piece and the community forum update, so we would have a chance to get some feedback from the community. My first note is to move to amend the agenda. And I'm so sorry about this, everyone, but I have to do this officially and correctly. Current agenda items 9, 10, and 11 are going to be moved after current agenda item number 4. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Susan.
Second.
Seconded by Christina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did I did that, Kim, am I okay to just proceed forward now? Okay, great. We are called to order now, so I can go ahead and turn it over to Dr. McCowan to do the Brighton Believer Awards.
Thanks so much, Mr. Davis and members of the board. As we've been saying for quite some time now, the Brighton Believes Council has selected nominees to receive Brighton Believers Awards for demonstrating Brighton Believes character traits of integrity, respect, responsibility, kindness, and self-control. And the award winners are students, teachers, staff members, community members. The nomination form, which we would encourage people to take advantage of, is on the website at bcsd.org, and we have several people being recognized tonight. I'm so excited for them to be here and for their nomination and recognition. If I could ask Chris and John Funt and Lori and Peter Bowler to come on up with Kristen Halligan, please, and Mrs. Edmonds. Chris and John Funt and Lori and Peter Bowler were nominated by 12 Corners Middle School teacher Kristen Halligan. She wrote, "Chris and Lori and their husbands have become vital threads in the Brighton community fabric. We met about a year ago when the family were supporting Through Keeping Our Promise, a nonprofit that works to resettle Afghan refugees who were embedded with U.S. troops in Afghanistan. This family enrolled their nephew at TCMS. Lori and Chris have been full partners in the education of this young student. He is here with an older brother and his wife, who had triplets shortly after arriving in Brighton. Chris and Lori have advocated tirelessly for this student and have worked with Mrs. Halligan to offer opportunities to the student even beyond school. They have shown kindness to this family, respect for the Brighton community, and have been responsible for easing their transition to life in Brighton. He has been able to participate in many extracurricular activities, from attending Camp Gorham to playing travel soccer and wrestling for school, all because Chris and Lori and their spouses have tirelessly made themselves available for anything that he and his family might need. They have spent countless hours driving, changing diapers, this is impressive, giving driving lessons, she said, not me, teaching the student how to cook food from his country and cheering him on the sidelines. As his teacher, I've been so lucky to have such incredible volunteers to partner with to ensure that he has the best chance he can have at also demonstrating the qualities of our Brighton community. Now, nominating them for this award is only one small way I could show my appreciation and thanks for all they have done. I can't think of a better example of selflessness, care for others, concern for our fellow human. What a great example for our kids and our community. Thank you.
This one's
We'll take a quick picture with Thank you very much. And Mrs. Edmonds can stay put because this is TCMS night for the Brighton Believers Award. Ashley Ellis, can you come on up also, please, along with those who you nominated, the Outdoor Education Committee of TCMS, Julie Whipple, Katie Falter, Katie Kantz, Jamie Nels, Dave Connolly, and Kelsey Turan. Ashley wrote that the outdoor education program at TCMS has taken place for nearly 30 years. This tradition is made possible through the dedication of individuals who envision, dream, organize, and create this legacy of an opportunity for our students. ODE is an experience that puts forth the focus on community and connectedness at the very beginning of the school year. Teachers can connect with their new 6th grade students in these adventurous ways while spending time together as quote-unquote people, differently than we normally view middle school students, but they are definitely people. If you go to Brighton, have gone through Brighton, or think of TCMS, you think of ODE. This committee exhausted themselves, showed up, worked beyond countless hours, and ensured that our students and community members would have a meaningful, unique, and legendary experience. They are the behind-the-scenes leaders of all the laughter, memories, community building, and more. They are Brighton, and they are our ODE reality makers. How lucky we are, and for many of us, how lucky we've been as parents. So I say to you both as a colleague, but also as an ODE dad, and one who survived staying overnight one night. You do pretty incredible work, and you do it all the time, not just the one time some of us have participated. So great job and congratulations. Anyone else? And Katie Falk. Thank you very much.
For those of our Brighton Believer Awards winners that may have homework to correct, tests to prepare for, or other such work, you are certainly welcome to exit at your convenience. You're also welcome to be here as we go through a number of important budget discussions, as well as DEI community forum update.
Didn't even finish a sentence and I
Yep.
stepped
Next up, we have approval of the amended agenda. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Eleanor,
Second.
seconded by Esther. All those in favor?
Aye.
Also need to have, you've all received the minutes from the March 14th, 2023 meeting, as well as the February 28th, 2023 meeting. Are there any changes or edits to those minutes?
We're all good.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved?
Second?
Moved by Susan, seconded by Christina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, as noted when we amended the agenda, will first be the approval of the resolution of the SEEKR, which is the acronym for State Environmental Quality Review Act. Resolution of the SEEKR agreement for the 2023 capital project. This and the next item will both require roll call votes, and you will hear our clerk, Kim, call your name for a yay or a nay. Do I put a motion to approve first?
Correct.
Motion, this is for new item number 5,
For the seeker.
approval of resolution for the SEEKR. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Julene,
Second.
seconded by Christina.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna take a roll call. Eleanor?
Aye.
Esther?
Yay.
Susan?
Yay.
Julene?
Yay.
Christina?
Yay.
Larry?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Can I note that Karen Hatch is absent tonight? Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Next, approval of a resolution authorizing the annual budget vote, election, and propositions. You've all had a chance to review those. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Eleanor,
Second?
seconded by Sue. All those in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Okay.
We're gonna roll call this one too.
We're gonna roll call this one as well. Larry?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Yay.
Julene?
Yay.
Eleanor.
Aye.
Esther.
Yay.
And I note that Karen Hatch is absent. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. The last of the budget vote propositions does not require a roll call, correct? My current number 7?
Correct, number 7,
Okay.
correct.
Approval of the, you've received this list, approval of the election inspectors for the 2023 budget vote, election, and proposition. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Julene,
Second.
seconded by Esther. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, and I appreciate the community's patience as we had to do things by rule for the budget. Next up, our current number 8 is the DEI BOE Community Forum update. This is a follow-up from our February 28th Community Forum. Dr. McGowan.
Thank you very much. As you noted at the beginning, we'll have public comment after this presentation and just a couple of housekeeping notes around that. What we did was essentially host a community forum on February 28th, which you do every fall and spring as a Board of Education. Sometimes it's an open-ended event, sometimes it's about a particular topic that is timely, and at the moment it certainly was timely to have a conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion, and about the use of racist language, which has presented itself as an issue at school. And so this is feedback to you. We also attended as an administrative group, as a leadership team, the session with you, and you were all there as board members hearing feedback in a good community conversation. We were there also. Notes were taken that we have sent out to the attendees from the event itself, and this is our distillation of those notes, a report back to all of you on what we have learned in that process and what we're recommending to you as a Board of Education in terms of action steps to take from here on out. The evening itself consisted of updates from the district team on work that's being done in the DEI area. We were able to share out some very quick updates. Many of the updates themselves were quick, but it took some time at the beginning certainly to communicate that. And then we had table discussions and really had 2 essential questions at each table. If you'd like to share what have your experiences related to the district's work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion area been like? And the second question, what should the district be doing more of, doing less of, and or considering for the future? And what we learned, just a general summary for you. First, that regarding our code of conduct, DASA procedures and practices, we currently do have outlines and general protocols, procedures for dealing with harassment, dealing with Dignity for All Student Act violations, investigations, sexual harassment, bullying, etc. The procedures may not be clear, though, and easily accessible for all. So I think part of the disconnect is that we certainly believe that we've got parts of our code of conduct and the DASA procedure that will address these issues, but that's not very clear to people. For one, it's not clear where it is in those documents and how to go about that. Or clear that it's being addressed very directly or what the consequences are. And so we recognize that. Families would like to see a clear outline of how we address concerns, incidents, particularly related to race, racism, racist language, K through 12. That includes a list of consequences, follow-up, including education and restorative practices. So just a strategy for keeping that very clear and upfront for people, we believe is something we learned people would like. A general statement on appropriate language in the district and the differences between language at school versus language at home should be developed, and that the statement should clearly differentiate that some words like the N-word may be used outside of school but have no place in the school setting regardless of race, ethnicity, etc. So clearly we're not endorsing, I want to make sure I'm clear, the use of the N-word. What we're trying to say is that we recognize that there are uses of the word by individuals that are viewed differently, and we recognize that, but that is an outside of school conversation. Inside school, it is not an appropriate word to be using. However, we recognize also that our response varies depending on the use of the word and the context around that. There is need for lessons around the impact of language, and they should be developmentally appropriate, continuous, throughout a child's K-12 experience. This is an area certainly we continue to learn that we may be lacking in. And this notion of social equity needs to be considered when developing these lessons as well. Communication of anti-racist activities needs to be shared more regularly. So some of the updates that we gave more broadly about diversity, equity, and inclusion we're fine, and we give those regularly as part of blueprint updates, but we need to find a way to communicate more clearly about the work that is happening, and particularly the many different ways that anti-racist activities are taking place in school. Communication was a key thread that wove through many of the conversations. Opportunities for empowerment need to be considered as well. We should continue to work with experts from outside of the district to support our journey and our work with students and families, recognizing where we don't have internal capacity and where external capacity can be supportive and helpful. And students are experiencing racist language far more than adults may be aware of. And certainly we learned more about that night. Clear communication protocols and more public awareness regarding racist incidents should also be considered. Hiring practices are another key aspect of the work that the district has been involved in. We certainly learned that we need to continue our attention on hiring practices and our diversification of our staff. Families need to be engaged in the discussion, and more needs to be done to bring people together and for families to engage throughout the community in being anti-racist. Regular and clear communication in district publications and through more effective use of the website is desired, and specific training on responding to the use of racist language would be beneficial for all staff, and we should continue to look at building our capacity in that area. Second piece of this, though, is the recommendations for action, and I want to give you a little bit of the framework of how we've presented these. One is with regard to several items that are labeled as blueprint team with other individuals that would be responsible for addressing those issues. When it says blueprint team, what we're indicating is that we have an annual strategic planning process that involves a lot of stakeholders and community members in providing feedback to that process. And that is the work that unites all of our committees. It connects our work, our strategic work, our instructional work, everything that we do back to our budget expenditures as well. It is the work plan for the year. And it's something that is developed, again, to use the name, as a strategy document used by the leadership team, and really outlines exactly what the actions will be for a year. Again, collaboratively developed, that addresses all aspects of the district's work. Diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives have been a big part of the blueprint plan going back several years, of course, and in this year as well. When we indicate blueprint team, what we're saying is that we would like the opportunity to collaboratively plan these items, utilizing the blueprint process, include them in our strategic plan going forward into next year and beyond. The first action step we would suggest is developing a vertical curriculum of social emotional learning work that is transformative and addresses racist language more directly, certainly than what's happening now. And we believe the blueprint team should address that in the plan this year. And that would be likely headed up then by Dr. Rio. Our consultants that we work with currently from Reese Center and Monroe 2 BOCES, we would ask for their support in that as well. Time frame would be summer 2023. That's when the blueprint planning takes place. And then throughout the 23-24 school year, that work would continue and implementation would happen. A second action step, a clear continuum should be established across buildings around why we are doing what we are doing in terms of social emotional learning and diversity, equity, inclusion lessons. Again, that would be an item for the blueprint team to consider in the planning process this year. Also, we would likely expect Dr. Rio, Reese Center, and Monroe 2 BOCES to be directly responsible for that work in the same time frame, summer of 23 and throughout next school year. Other recommendations for action: develop specific staff training related to racist language and the protocols for addressing incidents of it being used. Again, blueprint team, Dr. Rio, Reese Center, Monroe 2 BOCES, summer and throughout next year. Develop additional clarity in how we review curriculum and pedagogy through a culture responsive lens. Blueprint team, Dr. Rio, we believe curriculum council being involved in that work also would be essential. Instructional leaders throughout the district, again, Reese Center, Monroe 2 BOCES, we would depend on for consulting in that area. Summer of 2023 is when we would expect to address that. Further explore anti-racist approaches versus just culturally responsive approaches. We think distinguishing between those two is very important and being very specific in that. Again, Dr. Rio, blueprint team principals also involved in that work, Reese Center, Monroe 2 BOCES, summer 2023 and ongoing. We believe we should also review restorative practices district-wide, basically asking where we are and what is next. We've built capacity over the last several years. It's a good point to pause, determine how much capacity we actually do have at this point, where we need to be doing additional training, and how we can support the additional implementation of restorative practices. We'd like the blueprint team to address that along with the leadership team and support from the Partners in Restorative Initiatives, PERI, in that work also. We would be doing that this summer. Develop a clear plan that needs to be established with response to inappropriate racial language by building. Dr. Hall and the principals will be working on that. That is not a blueprint team item. That is a document we expect to create and publish by June 1st. And that's something, frankly, that's already in progress also. We'd like to rethink the DEI portion of the website, how to make it more fluid, reflective of regular daily work, improve our capacity to communicate to the community in these areas. We'd like Dr. Glazer, Dan Goldman, and Dr. Rio to work on that task summer of 2023, this summer, and develop an ongoing dialogue between the district and the Families of Color group. I would like to work directly with the Families of Color group to talk through how that would look, what we could do to make sure that we are regularly connecting, communicating, and providing feedback and being there as a resource really to create an ongoing and consistent dialogue. And I'd like to do that as soon as we can. We'd also like to create space for interaction between the Families of Color group and Recenter. Perhaps the opportunity to meet with our consultants, understand the work that has been done, the journey that they've been on, and really independently from district staff, have the Recenter group be able to work directly with Families of Color and gather their feedback as well. And I am Dr. McGowan, but Dr. Rio and I would facilitate that conversation and schedule that this spring, and develop more regular DEI communication, more centralized overall aspects of both our website but newsletters, and more communication on our DEI initiatives. Dan Goldman would work on that along with Cabinet, and that would be an ongoing effort also. In summary, what we've learned is a great deal, and appreciate the feedback from our community, and many people are here tonight that participated in that, and we're glad to continue to have the discussion and the dialogue. We learned we have work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We recognize that. This is only a part of the journey, a long journey that we will continue to be on. We believe there are actions embedded in this report that we can take in the short term, and those that should be considered in the context of our annual strategic planning process. Again, that embeds the work in our everyday, in what we do here, connects through all of our committees and through our financial planning as well. We're recommending that the short-term strategies be immediately addressed, and that the longer-term strategic items be addressed through our planning process. We know that we need to develop better ongoing dialogue regarding these challenges as well. Communication is important, but action is more important, and implementing those actions quickly, effectively is a key to making it a better environment for all kids, all families, and all stakeholders in our school community. I'm glad you moved the public comment to after this, because I'm certainly looking forward to hearing, and I know you are as well. I know this isn't set up as a dialogue or a forum. I hope we'll have that opportunity in the future, and hopefully by setting up time for us to work with the Families of Color group, we can have that. And that tonight's set up as comment, so I'll sit down, close it, and listen carefully. So thank you very much. Any questions for me before I sit down?
No, I'll make a comment. The February 20, and I'll only speak for me, the February 28th forum I thought was outstanding. It was also confusing and educational, and you know, you walk out of some of those sessions scratching your head. I see a few of my table partners there. I wrote this in a note to somebody. Sometimes you think you're starting to get a grasp on an issue, and then you have that form and you go, I don't really have any idea yet what we're supposed to be doing. And so we talk a lot as a group about, and this sounds trite, but being comfortable being uncomfortable. I learned a lot that night, but I also left uncomfortable, going, I just got to sit and think through some of these things. So I really appreciate all the people who came on the 28th and participated and provided feedback. The one message that you've got here, I guess two messages from my standpoint are the most important, and that is the second part of that second bullet, which is we have a lot more work to do. We all agree with that. And communication is important, and action is more important. And I know I'm speaking for the board when I say all that. So I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
I actually would
Please.
like to, I actually was thinking as you were presenting about the forum that this has been an interest of mine since grad school, so 30 years, right, to tell you how old I am. And it wasn't called DEI work at the time, but I think what I learn whenever we have a community forum is that this work is never done, and you're never an expert because it's constantly evolving. And so I appreciate the time that we as a board discuss these issues, and when we have participation with our community, how important that is to sort of reflect on the work that we've been doing and also reflect on how much growth we still have. So I was just thinking about that as you were presenting, that you really can't, but I think what I love in, the last number of years that we've been doing this work in the district is that how we embed it throughout all the work that we do, instead of sort of having this top-down approach. We're trying to really grow it ground up, and I really do appreciate that, and I'm glad that we're having those discussions as a board and, with our leadership team.
Thank you. Good way to put it.
Anybody else, comments before I go to public participation? Okay, we are going to have public participation. We are, as always, anxious to receive feedback. 2 quick comments. Dan Goldman, will you raise your hand, please, back there? Or you can stand up, that's even better, thank you. If you'd like to come up and speak, just hand Dan an index card and I will call you. I've got one here right now. And all you're required to do is give your name and the town you live in. I would also say that while we have had a lot of good conversation on DEI, you can make comments in public participation about anything you want, budget or anything else. Finally, because we do sort of have a lot of business yet to get to, the standard time that we allocate for public participation is 3 minutes. Eleanor's at the end of the table here. She's got sort of a yellow card and a red card. At the 2-minute 30 mark, she'll raise the yellow card, which means you have 30 seconds left. I'm sorry, I've got a card right here, Victoria Love.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the board and members in the room. My family is new to the district. My younger son started in the fall, and my older child started in the school district last year. Got a 12th grader and a 7th grader. I didn't prepare a statement, so I'll kind of speak from the heart. It's been extremely challenging to experience the level of interpersonal racism that my son has been exposed to as a 7th grader. It breaks my heart every day. It keeps me up every night. I would say that I'm very pleased that we had that opportunity to speak with the school district on several occasions, and also the forum that we had on the 28th. I also appreciate the outline and the action items that you've all prepared. I think it's very helpful. I would say that for the people that are just learning about this issue, please understand that it's something that families have been grappling with for years. So I am really pleased that the district is willing to dedicate more resources. And I would also say that while it's fabulous that we have the consultants from Recenter, BOCES, and other organizations, we absolutely need them. But my biggest ask would be to have a dedicated office for diversity, equity, and inclusion. People here in the school district working side by side, elbow to elbow with the board, administration, teachers, students, to learn, to guide, to advise. I think if we really want to accelerate change, it will really take that. In the meantime, I am grateful for an opportunity to continue this dialogue and to work with the outside consultants that we'll be bringing in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to comment? See no one else, I will proceed with the next item on the agenda. Do you want to say anything else?
No, just thank you, Group. I appreciate it.
Okay. Now we're going to do the presentation of the executive budget proposal for the 23-24, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
I was
thank
gonna
you.
give it to you.
Okay,
That would be
thank
fun.
you. I apologize.
Doesn't seem possible.
I know.
Yes, so the 23-24 executive budget proposal First of all, we start out, as you know, in the fall with our key budget guidelines and thinking about how to develop a spending plan that honors what you as a board set forth as the guidelines for our spending plan. These boil down to making sure that we have sustaining revenues for our ongoing expenses, right? So in the first place, and for this year, this really was the notion of preparing for the high impact programs that we have developed and put in place to not be reduced because one-time federal funds are going to be leaving us. So we want to make sure that in the general fund we could support those programs for the long term. We want to make sure that we have the appropriate resources to support the blueprint plan and our priorities: mental health wellness, academic excellence, student and family experience, staff support, collaborative culture, safety, and planning for the future, which are our priority buckets. We wanted to make sure also that we develop a spending plan that considers the economic climate, changing student needs, and the board recognized in these guidelines that we need to prioritize resources, evaluate opportunities for efficiency, optimization, and really always look at reduction and consolidation, protectors of the community's resources for sure. That's a big part of your work and ours. We want to make sure we are prudently planning also for long-term investment in the district's facilities, and we have a capital plan. You approved several motions tonight that involve seeker for the capital project, the environmental quality review, but also authorizing the propositions. And we'll detail tonight a little bit about that long-term perspective on long-term investment in capital. And we always want to make sure that we are compliant with the New York State property tax cap, understanding the long-term impact on our financial planning. Everything we do now has a significant impact for several years going forward. The budget development calendar, we'll skip all the way down almost towards the bottom to the presentation tonight, of course, of the executive budget. But I point out that feedback can be provided, of course, through April 11th. We're expecting finalization any day now of the state's budget as well, which will help us also finalize, tweak any numbers perhaps. And then we'll ask you on April 11th to adopt the budget that will be presented to taxpayers at the vote on the 16th. There is a hearing then of that final budget on May 9th as well. So the annual meeting and budget vote on all propositions takes place on May 16th. The priorities that we've developed for the budget, so you set the guidelines, but then through gathering community feedback, through thought exchange, our interaction at budget forums, board meetings, our interactions with you, stakeholders, our budget makers, so to speak, we really kind of distill all that information into what are our priorities. And we wanted to make sure, again, that we're minimizing the tax impact and make sure that's as low as it can possibly be. We want to ensure that the resources are targeted to student needs and staff support to meet those needs. So very much our budget is a statement on how we would like to support children and make sure their individual needs are being addressed. And we want to maintain our fiscal stability. That's that long-term perspective. And how do we maintain that? You've developed a lot of fiscal stability. How do you grow that over time as well? And continue to always pay attention to that. This year's budget has a big impact on the future. And we would like to support new and innovative programs, always thinking about additional ways that we can support families and kids, and they have evolving needs. We need to be able to innovate to meet those needs also. The budget itself and what we are proposing to you in terms of the spending plan would be a $100,091,697 budget, up $6.9 million or 7.4% in spending. Salaries and wages would increase 7.3%, and it's important to point out that is not individual salaries going up 7.3%. It is the salary spending overall. So when you see a number of positions moving from federally grant funded into the general fund, that means they're supported now in the spending plan. And the number of those positions would increase our spending, our overall spending in that area, constituting part of that, in addition to the regular increases that we would see both to contractually negotiated agreements, but also increase in minimum wage, for example. Employee benefits will go up 5%, and that includes benefits such as health insurance, retirement system benefits that we are mandated by statute to pay into. We don't run our own programs, but we get billed by the state for public employees, and we pay into those. BOCES expenses will go up 10.1%, supply services up 10.5%, debt and transfer up 7.5%. The revenues, though, that we are estimating to pay for that spending are important to consider. And this chart simply shows you the difference in revenue in the second from right-hand column in each area, and then the far right column gives you a proportion to spending. So in other words, how much could that revenue increase support an increase in spending? And for us, it's important to balance those two things. If we're saying to you that we need to spend 7.4% more to changing needs, bringing those positions into the budget, continuing those programs, what's going to pay for that? What's the revenue to pay for that? We want to be able to match that. So going into next year, we're looking at an increase in sales tax revenue of 8.2%. That is a flow through from the county to us, county sales tax. Investment income will go up 75%. That sounds like fantastic news. Well, it's not bad news, but it's only $9,500. We don't have these large investments in places. It's a relatively small amount of money, and the interest earned on places where that money rests before it goes out. Charges for services to non-public schools will go up 6%. That's great, except that also means there's a corresponding spending item to that. We charge for the services that we provide, that we are mandated to provide to students at those schools, but that gets billed back and revenue back to us. Again, we've spent that money though, so it's coming in. Refunds and recoveries overall will go up $79,392, and state and federal aid going up 25.7%. Key aspect to this is this is the third year of the foundation aid full implementation, so we went from 60% to 80%, 100%. Many of you here in the room and in the community were involved in the advocacy that has made that happen. It's made quite a substantial difference for us. As you can see, $6.4 million is certainly very significant. And in fact, you'll notice that makes up the lion's share of the increase in revenue that will pay for the spending increase. So overall, those local sources are 22.1% and would add up again to 7.4% overall. We have a couple of interesting pieces here though that I want to point out to the community. With the increase of state aid, it is really important for us to reduce our reliance on reserves to pay for program. So every year you have an appropriated fund balance that you appropriate or you put towards the tax levy. So it's money from the savings account. And when I say savings account, the budget usually lands at about 97-98% of what has been budgeted being spent. So we're pretty close to what we ask for from the community, but it goes back to the community in the form of going into reserves for a variety of different purposes. So we have a capital reserve, for example, a technology reserve, and we'll talk about those tonight. But we also have a reserve for employee retirement liability, et cetera. But this reserve in particular is to go towards the tax levy, the appropriated fund balance. And that's a really good strategy in times when you need to bridge the gap between state aid coming in and the programs that you have an expense for. But if you're always taking money out of your savings account, and you can't guarantee that you're going to be able to continue to put money into that savings account, and you're withdrawing more from your savings than what you're able to put in on a check-to-check basis, you're going to eventually reduce that savings to a point where you can't afford to continue to put it towards that bill, that tax bill in particular. So right now, while more state aid is coming, it's really important for us to use less of the savings account, more of the state aid. So we're reducing that as a revenue source for next year and proposing to you that we knock that down by $350,000 in the use of overall reserves and $650,000 in that appropriated fund balance. In total, that $1 million represents 1.1% in spending. Where that is made up, though, is in the property tax levy. So all of the other sources of income that I talked about were not property taxes. What we're talking about then is raising the levy under our cap number of 1.75%. It's 1.7%. This chart obviously is rounded, but we're at 1.1% then. So what essentially the state would likely want us to be communicating to you, although I wouldn't exactly put it this way, is if you look at the way the numbers break down, all of the aid is going to pay for program and all of our increased expenses. And the property tax levy, in this case, is essentially allowing us to reduce our reliance on the savings account. And it's the operational cost as opposed to kind of the increases over time. All in all, that balances out, that tax levy balances out, and we don't have to use then the appropriated fund balance, and we're able to keep that spending increase at 7.4%, and the corresponding revenue to afford it would afford 7.4% as well. How does it break down in terms of state aid? What kinds of state aid? What is that going towards? As you can see, the executive budget proposal, because we don't yet have the agreed upon legislative proposal, that's where this gets tweaked before the final version that you vote on and the budget hearing. Executive budget proposal for state aid, foundation aid, as we mentioned, up $6.4 million. It's $18.9 million next year, and you can see the comparison to the previous 2 years. Our BOCES excess cost aid will be $4.5 million, up just a little bit, $200,000. Transportation aid will go up about $100,000. That's great, but remember that's because we've spent that money. We get reimbursed for a portion of our transportation costs. It's not like some new benevolence from the state of New York. It's based on increased cost. And our building aid will go up next year, will go down next year by about $30,000, but relatively flat in the grand scheme of things. We are also required as a new part of the foundation aid formula to report our plan and be accountable for that big increase in state aid. And so what we are required to articulate to you and to the public and to describe very clearly is that we've sought public comment from parents, teachers, other stakeholders, or we do community forums, and we certainly in our board meetings have plenty of opportunity for that also. Take public comments into account in the development of the plan. We did that and actually have illustrated using the thought exchange feedback, the development of our budget priorities, and an analysis of public comments within the plan, which we reported out on as well. And our plan describes how the aid will be used in each of these areas, increasing graduation rates, eliminating the achievement gap. We've done that better than we have ever done that in our history and are at the highest point with the smallest gaps. Virtually no gaps between achievement for groups, reducing class sizes. We'll show you positions we're adding tonight to reduce or maintain small class sizes. Provide support for students who are not meeting, at risk of not meeting state learning standards, core academic subject areas. That's where we are adding instructional support and instructional support leadership in the general fund, bringing those positions out of the COVID grant money. Addressing student social emotional health, which we have done by adding lots of mental health staff again through that federal grant now coming into the budget to be supported by foundation aid. Providing adequate resources to English language learners, students with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness, goal and ratio for pupil support, and detailed summaries of investments in current year initiatives, and the balance of funds spent in priority areas, which directly aligns to actually how we articulate our spending plans along with our strategic plan. Unrestricted spending, where is that being allocated? The foundation aid, $5.9 million, tax levy, $1 million. So in other words, those are revenues that are not restricted to capital or to transportation or to particular areas where they have to be spent, but essentially unrestricted. It's going towards contract wage and benefits. For one, we're a people business. That's where it largely goes towards. Financial planning, mental health interventions, focusing on the needs of students. Tuitions and services, programs for students where we pay tuition for them to attend particular programs to meet their needs. Contract transportation, which supports those programs. And again, the new positions, class size, mandated services to support students, and other inflationary factors, such as the increase of costs for materials and supplies people are experiencing at home. That's happening here at school as well. The salary and wage budget factor is a primary factor for us to communicate to the community. Again, people business, that's where we should be spending the majority of our funds. This breaks down a few areas. One, contractual increases and the increase in the minimum hourly wage have impacted us financially in that overall spending area that I mentioned, going up 7.3%. New positions that are related to the continuity of programs and mandates. K through 5 class size, we are committing 3 positions to that, to minimizing or maintaining class size. The chart on the right shows you where we're adding a particular position at the kindergarten level, at the first grade level, and at the third grade level to avoid even larger classes, to minimize that increase as much as we can. We have 1 teacher budgeted for elective choices at the secondary level as well, and deaf and visually impaired positions of 2 teaching positions. The positions that we are transferring from the expiring federal dollars are important to articulate. A position in the Brighton Support Center, literacy intervention, math intervention, reading positions, school counselors, and school psychologists. So those will now be part of the general fund and not dependent on one-time revenue. The tax cap calculation, which you have already authorized as a board and voted on prior, is a mathematical formula provided by the state that results at a 1.75% growth from the tax levy base, which, as we mentioned, allows for a 1.1% increase in spending. I think it's really important for us to articulate to our community, what are people getting for their investment in the school district and the service that's being provided to children. And just a couple of quick highlights again. Graduation rate is the highest it's ever been. 98% of our students last year graduated with their Regents diploma, and 71% with advanced distinction. 74% of our kids, 74%, 3 in 4 kids, graduating with at least one AP credit as they leave. We've placed a big priority on academic rigor for all students, and we want to continue to grow that number. 85% of our kids plan to attend a 2 or 4 year school. Several different recognitions, ranked number 1 in both Rochester, upstate New York by niche.com as a school district. The high school was named a Blue Ribbon school, of course, in 2018. And the middle school, the last time they were up for redesignation in 2021, was redesignated as a school to watch. Wide variety of athletic teams, music opportunities. We continue to be a best community for music education. 1,600 children, grades 4 through 12, participate in music program. 1,500 roster spots for our kids who participate in athletic events as well. On this document, which is available on the website, it really details how many kids are in each building, our staff, and a variety of other awards and honors, and the readiness for our kids, the overall gap closing measures that have been taken, but really the results of those and where kids are landing, and some of the work that's being done in the district around diversity, equity, inclusion, social emotional learning, and again, more detail on the extracurricular activities that we would encourage people to take a look at so they really understand what they are getting for their individual investment. The proposed capital project will really help us. The years are hard to see, but if you take a look, the first 3 bars are 2023, 24, and 25, and that's the local share that will be paid for the capital project. We're using capital reserves for that and what has been budgeted. But over time, you can see that levels out to a $400,000 annual investment and even a drop-off, a net, further out in 2040 should nothing change. But the proposed capital project would have that impact. And it's really 2 phases. One is this May and then one is December. But the vote for this May, we'd like people to focus on, but we want them also to know what's going to happen in December. In May, we'd be proposing renovations to the high school tech area, the music area, the family consumer science area at the middle school, and building systems and improvements. So these are the HVAC and the kinds of buildings things that have to happen of $19.5 million. And I'll go into some more details around those. In December, what we would recommend is using the community's proceeds from the Brookside sale to leverage that in state aid, constructing a multi-season sport turf field. We really struggle in the back with the grass field being limited in its ability to be used based on weather. Turf improves that dramatically, and also the quality of the surface itself. Some of the fields just simply aren't usable without potentially exposing kids to injury. We want to make sure that we have the best, safest surface. If it was not turf, even investing in the grass is very costly to really restructure that. But we can position fields differently and use turf to really maximize that space in a way that will make a lot more sense and provide more equity, we think, also for male-female programs, more access to that turf surface throughout the year. We'd also like to reconfigure the parking lot using the acquired church property. Again, utilizing right away the community's investment in purchasing the property from the church next door, along with the Brookside proceeds, to really make a more safe exit and entrance, really improve that parking lot overall. Really showing a 100% reinvestment in the property that was purchased, but also the sale of the Brookside property that will help the entire community. It gives us an additional $10 million investment in building systems modernization, really replenishing that car payment overall. So the capital improvement project, the budget, like we mentioned, nearly $19.5 million, and that consists of the middle school, $4.9 million, French Road, $1.9 million, the high school, $6.6, and then reauthorizing funds that were already approved by the community of $250,000. The detail around the second proposition, renovations for each of the building, we'll run through those quickly. We didn't mention 2 of the buildings. French Road, we'd like to redesign the front vestibule to make for a safer entrance and exit. The exterior facade and signage replacement, it's really time. Some of those are quite dated at this point. Hallway ceilings, flooring, lighting replacement, which is a high priority for us, and heat pump replacement. The middle school, the entrance door 6 and storefront replacement. Card readers, family consumer science I mentioned to you, elevator cab mechanical replacement. Hallway ceiling, again, flooring and lighting replacement. hallway floor abatement and stair safety modifications also. And at the high school, we'd also look at the addition of a greenhouse, which we had lost previously in one of our previous projects. We had to take that piece out. We'd like to be able to replace that. And we mentioned the music suite, tech suite, each of those areas also that need work that I mentioned at the beginning. And then site work around the high school, the not fancy stuff but important things to maintain our facilities and the investment that the community has made. The third proposition is a withdrawal from our technology reserve. We often are asking the community to do this. We have to ask to take money out of reserves and to establish those reserves. So those are the savings account. When we establish them, they can be funded up to a certain amount. You are able to put money into those every year, but then to withdraw from that requires voter authorization. And that's, we think, a really healthy check and balance for a community being engaged in that process. This has no impact at all on the tax levy. This is taking money out of the savings account. One could actually argue it has a positive impact because then we don't need to include these expenses in the general fund. They can come right out of the reserve as opposed to us having to budget for them. So in a sense, reducing the potential tax liability. And it also generates BOCES aid for future reinvestment, which we often, when that revenue comes in, ask you to be designating back to reserves, of course, at the end of the year. And that involves the Aruba switch replacements, closet cabling upgrades, wireless upgrades, Promethean boards, central office wiring updates, and core switch replacements as well. I think the number that people are often waiting for is what is the impact on our tax rates. We also have an issue with regard to equalization. And the equalization rate is a number provided by New York State that essentially balances things out for taxpayers in a community that are in two different taxing and assessment jurisdictions. In our community, we're looking primarily at Brighton and Pittsford in this conversation. And this chart illustrates for you that if we had no increase in the levy or a change in the tax base, what would happen based on the equalization rates that were just being provided right now by the state. In the current year, the equalization rate is 89%, and in Pittsford, it's 82%. What that means is the state has looked at the assessments in these taxing jurisdictions and essentially is saying that Brighton's assessments are 89% of what they should be. So our individual homes are assessed 89% accurately. They're short by 11%. They should be 11% higher. And that Pittsford's homes are 82% accurate. They should be 18% higher. Well, in looking at next year's levy and values, the state is now saying, because of the skyrocketing home values that we all hear about, we talk about in town, that our assessments are now only 70% accurate in Brighton, and they're 72% accurate in Pittsford. Now, that's not to say that the assessor here has been inaccurate or that people have made any kind of mistake. This is an analysis that's done by the state to say, you know, we know you went through a full reeval. We know people have their homes reevaluated all the time when sales happen, but based on the trends we're aware of and the numbers we're looking at, this is how the property value is going up very, very quickly is represented in equalization. You're not quite as accurate as you thought you were. And again, that's done by the state, and the assessments are done by the town. These are numbers that we receive, not numbers that we have anything to do with. And I'm not blaming anybody else. I just want people to know these are numbers out of our control and analysis that's done. So the impact of that, if there was no change in the levy staying just the same, so the amount we're collecting just the same one year to the next, and no change in the tax base. In other words, the values in town not changing, no new properties, no new supermarket perhaps that might change the levy going into next year somewhat. It would mean a $27.06 change per $1,000 for homes in Brighton and $26.31 in Pittsford. $11 overall in Brighton on a home value of $250,000, and actually less now because of the change being different for Pittsford of $753. Looking though at next year and what we're proposing in terms of the levy change, right? So if we're thinking about the different impacts now when we're proposing an increase in the levy of 1.75%, with those equalization rates of 70 and 72%, we're talking about a rate change of $27.53 in Brighton, $26.77 in Pittsford, which would mean on a home valued at $250,000. Here's the bottom line, the key number: $129 difference in Brighton, Pittsford down $639. So again, overall, home valued at $250,000. If you look at the yellow highlights, with a change in equalization and the levy at the cap, which is what we're proposing, homes in Brighton valued at $250,000 would go up $129, and Pittsburgh would go down $639. The numbers to the right of that would indicate to you changes in the tax levy base, right, the values of the levy overall. If they go up 1/4%, if they don't go down 1/4%. Slight variation you can see. The overall values, the value of the levy goes up 1/4%. We're talking about $112 and less $655 in Pittsburgh. If it goes down 1/4%, up $146 or down $622 in Pittsburgh. And that is intended to, again, equalize between the two taxing jurisdiction because of the way the levies are analyzed, the values are analyzed. So the total spending proposal is $100,091,697, or up 7.4%, $6.9 million. The levy, we're estimating that up 1.74%, tax cap compliant, would be $1 million, and again, reflects our continued investment, mental health and wellness, academic excellence, student family experience, staff support, collaborative culture, safety, planning for the future, and the priorities that over the course of the budget and the budget feedback stage and the working with you in our community and the feedback in the thought exchange, minimize the tax impact, ensure the right resources are available to support students and staff, maintain our fiscal stability, and support new and innovative programs. One question that often comes up is, what would you do without that levy number? What about that $1 million? What if, because of the increase in state aid, you could go out with a zero? That $1 million would not allow us to reduce the use of fund balance, for one. And then what happens next year? Because now that we're at 100%, we can't count on a state aid increase next year that is of any significance. We would need to capture that $1 million that we didn't collect this year in revenue, and then whatever our increase in expenses is the next year, essentially doubling the tax increase, because that expense will not go anywhere. It would still be there unless we were to cut programs in a corresponding fashion, which I don't think anybody wants to plan for. So that's the importance of maintaining even the minimal tax increase of 1.74%. Our next steps, of course, are to continue to assess the impact of the final budget. Again, any moment now we should hear about that. And then the budget forum, budget adoption on the 11th with all of you. Budget hearing then on May 9th, and the budget vote on the 16th, right here in this building from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I appreciate you taking the time to go through this, and I say this without the slightest hint of humor. It just seems like we talk about budget every meeting and run through the numbers. So for all of us, we hear and see this a lot. A lot of it makes sense, a few things don't. Not from your standpoint, but in terms of how the state looks at things. I appreciate, and you always do an excellent job of saying this, I appreciate all the work Lou and Dahlia do behind the scenes, prepping numbers, putting things together, looking at scenarios for us, and going through all those things so we can provide a minimal impact to our community. So thank you to your team that does a lot of the work on these numbers. Much appreciated. From a board standpoint, any other comments or questions? Okay.
Thank you for the feedback, your participation throughout, but I think you bring up a great point. Without Lou's work and his team, we would not have the fiscal stability we do, the ability to fund program. Allison and Deanna would not have the ability to look at Lou and say, please, we need this, and these things are important for children, all kidding aside, or the principals to be able to sit and thoughtfully say, this is what I need to do the work for our kids and help them be successful, and Lou to find a way. He always asks how, and how can we make that happen, and why not instead of why. And I think that's important, while being thoughtful and analytical and protecting every penny provided by our taxpayers in the form of aid and tax collection. But make sure he provides the financial stewardship that we can all count on. So thank you, Lou, for your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have principal reports. Let's hear from the interim French Road principal first.
Starts at the beginning, that's okay.
I wasn't trying to fast forward.
Hey, it's me, the interim principal at French Road. Happy to be back here talking about French Road again with all of you. And today just going to give some updates on some of the fantastic things happening around the building. Some of them you might have heard about from Lashara before she headed back to her new position, and some will be new tonight. So at the first Friday in March, as we celebrate every year, we had our Read Across America Day with guests coming to read to our French Road students from internal within the district. You can see some familiar faces up there, Dr. McGowan and Mr. Green, and then also anyone from the community who is interested in coming in and reading with our students. So you'll see Mayor Evans there and Bill Malley there as well as many other guests that came in for the day. This is a really special day for French Road. It's been going on for a long time. The students look forward to hearing books and also having conversation with people from around the district and around the community that they don't get to interact with regularly. So that was a very fun day for them. And also at the end of February, we wrapped up with some special assemblies for Black History. So some of the ones that haven't been shared yet that I thought were really important to share with everyone tonight was especially this one, because you'll recognize one person there. That's Henry Westbrooks. He's our fantastic security guard at French Road, and you also know his brother from the high school, Harvey. Their mom, Lulu Westbrooks, came to French Road for an assembly to talk about her life and being an agent of change and really connected with the kids. Henry is like a superstar at French Road, so all of the kids love him, and he connects with so many students. So to have his mom there talking to the students was just extra special. She was very engaging. She got the students into her conversation, and we were really happy to have her there, and an awesome picture of Henry with his mom there. Harvey did not come, unfortunately. He was at the high school. And also an assembly by Herb Smith, who is in the RPO, trumpet player. And he came to French Road to play for our students as well and talk about his journey. So those were two really special assemblies at the end of February. Just like you'll hear about probably from many of the schools tonight, we had Brighton Believes Day the first week of March, and French Road did, with the support of our PTSA and Ms. Flores, organized a wonderful drive to benefit Mary's Place. And this year was a little bit different than years past in that we had put together a code for families to donate through an Amazon site, and everything was shipped to one parent's house and brought to the school, which was actually super helpful for families who wanted to participate and didn't have the chance to go to the store and find the right things and bring them to French Road, which can be challenging. And what we ended up with was like a huge amount of products that we were able to bring to all the classrooms. You can see here how many things were donated throughout the Fres community. And then our students worked within their homerooms to create bags where they wrote positive messages. You'll see a few examples here. And then they bagged up the personal supplies, and they were brought by our PTSA to Mary's Place. And it was an awesome experience for the students, and hopefully easy for families to support, and really valuable time for our kids to see what they can do to make a donation with their time and with, products as well. One of my favorite events at French Road, which I'm thrilled to be back for, it's like it came just in time for me, is the Science and Social Studies Fair, where we had probably almost 100 different booths over 2 nights of students who were excited to celebrate whatever was on their mind around science or social studies. Literally, it is a time where students can present on anything that they're interested in. And we just spend the night rotating through the booths, hearing what kids have presented on. I shared a few pictures with you here today. The boy in the bottom left of the screen created like an automated plant waterer so that you could use Alexa to water your plants. I thought that was super interesting. Hadn't seen that one before. There was some on recycling here. There were quite a few lava lamps this year. Elephant's toothpaste was a foam experiment that I saw quite a few booths up, and then of course you're going to see your standard volcanoes and things like that as well. Lots of different exhibits, very engaging night. It's just like from the minute it starts till the minute it ends, kids are walking around and celebrating the work that they brought to share with others. It's just really awesome to see. And then this is, not a video clip, it's a picture of a video clip But I wanted to highlight the partnership that French Road has with the Inbalim School in Modi'in, because the focus this year has really been around mindfulness and the connection with Janice Mix's health class with a PE teacher who also works on mindfulness, who visited us earlier this year in December. And together they've been making these videos and sending them back and forth on different breathing strategies, and they're very simple and awesome, but it's really cool seeing the kids send these videos back and forth and knowing that that's a focus for both school buildings in 2 different countries. And then I wanted to highlight something you've heard a little bit about this year, but the work that our 3rd and 4th grade teachers have been doing around wit and wisdom. And what I wanted to highlight is how powerful this has been for our students and the growth we've seen in them as readers and writers throughout this year. So Wit and Wisdom is the ELA program that our 3rd and 4th graders are using at French Road. And the cool part about it is every unit starts off with some artwork. So the artwork that you see up here is from the unit called The Sea, and the students engage in looking at the artwork, talking about what they're seeing, and they are making inferences about what they're going to be reading about and how this connects to what they're learning about. All of the units that our students go through have some really, really cool nonfiction texts to coincide with some fictional texts around the same topic. So I took a screenshot there of some of the books that are part of this unit. And what has been so impressive is that watching the students grow over the course of the year, just a snapshot of the writing of some 3rd grade students. And this is, I know you can't get into reading them all here, but this is pretty representative of all kids, not just students who are high performing. The students' writing has blossomed this year across 3rd and 4th grade, and we are just so thrilled with how good they feel about it and how willing and able they are to share what they learned. So these are some examples from Mrs. Holfith's 3rd grade class around the shark writing piece that they did at the end of their PC unit. And then we ended, just in March with some Irish dancing. I thought this picture that parent Jen Allen sent to me was very entertaining because it's me and the girls when they were here the last time dancing at French Road, and now they're back again. So just celebrating them and celebrating how much they've grown, and happy to come back and be part of the French Road community as, middle school students or high school students, and some still elementary school students who were here as well. Our report cards are going to be sent home March 30th. We have spring recess, and then we have our state assessments coming up beginning on April 19th. We will have math state assessment in May. I don't have that on here. We're excited for Brighton Night at Frontier Field on April 26th. And then, as you'll hear probably tonight, also no school for our conference day at the end of April. So there is French Road in a nutshell. Happy to be back and sharing with you. Any questions?
No, just a thanks on behalf of the board for the double duty you're sort of pulling right now. I know you appreciate being back with the kids, but you're also getting a lot of curriculum stuff done, so thank you for your efforts there.
Thank you.
Christine has asked that Danielle go next, so we'll hear about the middle school.
I did not.
I was gonna
The Venmo didn't go through.
Yeah, right.
No, it just wasn't enough to
I just want to give a shout out to Allison as well, because I don't know how she's doing it, but she's continuing to support all of us and all the work that we're doing in our buildings and all the curriculum work and be amazing at French Road. So I know you know all that, but we are super appreciative of her. March is like, there's no vacation days in March, but we can pack it in there. We had some amazing things going on at the middle school this month, and it actually flew because we had so much going on. We started off the month with our students who take French, 8th graders, going on the Quebec trip. And while I think they're crazy, they like to go in the winter when it's cold, so they're there for Winter Festival. And if anybody's been on the Quebec trip before, it's an absolutely amazing trip, walking through old Quebec, and then all the history that the students get to experience, and of course the sugar shack and the syrup and the snow, and they just have the greatest time. And the trips at the end of the year are always so difficult for me because you watch the kids bond in such an amazing way that you wish you could do it earlier in the year, but you also know they're not quite ready to do that earlier in the year. You know, it's just really, they're at that right spot of their maturation process where they just love each other so much by the end of the trip. So kudos to Lauren Mashevsky and the chaperones that went on it. It was a great trip. We're so thankful that they were able to go, and they're going back again. They're planning for next winter as well. Also, our French students got to experience quite a concert. Dr. Hall and the team at the middle school, we were able to bring ATN to the high school to provide a French concert for us. So if you don't know ATN is a world-renowned concert. He has sold out concert tours all through Canada, the United States, China, New Zealand, Australia. Like, he's a big deal. And he also sings all these songs so that the kids can learn French verbs and French conjugations of verbs. So the kids love him, and it was like they were going to a pop concert. They all made their signs, they went over, they were cheering the video just like they're out of their mind. So it was super cool. And every time I look at him over on the screen, I kind of think he looks a little like Matt Tappan. So I don't know if we paid a little too much for the guy or what, but there's a little similarity there.
Well, Matt Tappan is also super cool, so.
Yeah, he is
And
super
a
cool.
fantastic
And he's
singer.
musical. I mean, it could have been him the whole time. We don't even know.
Yes. His alter ego.
Also music in our schools month, which if you were able to go to the district strings concert, you saw Jenny Mull dress up in her blow up dinosaur costume there as they played some songs from Jurassic Park, but truly just an amazing experience. I brought my own son, a 7th grader, and he just couldn't believe all of the students that we had in the program and how 4th graders were able to play a song beside 12th graders. So it was really, really pretty cool. And then, of course, we had all of our concerts for band. We had our Vocal Prism concert as well for our high schoolers and middle schoolers. We had quite a few all-county participants this month, so 2 consecutive weekends. We had our 6th graders participate in the elementary all-county. We had 19 students across the band and the orchestra participate. And then the following weekend, which was just this past weekend, we had 25 7th and 8th graders participate in our all-county band and orchestra. So great representation and a great experience for our students. The Shinshanim continue to present in our classes regardless of curricular area. This month, though, they happen to teach lessons in Mr. Giles' 8th grade English class. He's in his study on power, and the core text is night. So they came to talk about Righteous Among the Nations, where they talked about non-Jewish folks who risked their lives during the Holocaust to save people from the Nazis. So it was a really powerful experience for students to hear teenagers sharing the story and the information. It was great. We too celebrated Brighton Believes Day, but we kind of extended it over like 2.5 weeks. So on Brighton Believes Day proper, we had presenters come in. So we had 3 different organizations. We had the Center for Youth came in and talked to our 8th graders. We had representatives from the Refugee Resettlement Center came in and talked to our 7th graders, and then folks from Asbury came in and talked to our 6th graders. And they wound up kicking off our toiletry drive that lasted for about 2 weeks, and we just packed up today. So I put some pictures on Instagram, but our service club with Mrs. Falter and Mrs. Kantz and all of the students worked together to make up individual toiletry bags. The bags were provided by the PTSA for us, which was fantastic. And then Mrs. Kantz and Mrs. Falter are going to donate those to the different organizations today. And also you can see, if you, do you notice a familiar face there? Bonnie Watson? You see her there? So she was one of the ones that came and talked about Asbury, but she and her colleague there have boxes of books that Mrs. Falter's 6th graders were also able to donate to Asbury. We had lots of science festivities. The Science Olympiad and the Science Bowl teams competed this year. So our Science Bowl team is the 3 young men on the left there, 6th graders, and first time out, they took 3rd place in the Western New York Regional. So that was fantastic. Sanuka and Kavi and Nalith, super excited, and I know they're going to do amazing things in the next 2 years as representatives for TCMS as well. And then we have 4 of our 5 students who also participated in the Science Olympiad, and all of them placed in the top 7 in their respective categories. Leon there placed in 5 events. He actually came into the day thinking he was only going to do 2 events, and Mrs. Elkins threw him into 3 more, and he actually placed in them, which was amazing. And then Lily also placed in 2, and Kinjal also placed in 2. So great work for them. Again, super exciting things moving forward. Mr. Gibbons is new back to us from the high school, teaching 7th and 8th grade social studies. So he had his classes debating the Bill of Rights and different aspects of it. And it was super cool. You know, whenever the kids get so dressed up, they take it seriously, they get in the role. They did a fantastic job developing their arguments and refuting with each other. We have quite a bit of talent, far more than I have, in our students, and these are just 2 examples. Ms. Harkey is a long-term sub in our building as an 7th and 8th grade art teacher, and she's done a fabulous job of entering our students' work into a variety of competitions and getting recognition for them. So Mary Lundy's multimedia work or mixed media work on the left there is up at a NYSATA art show, and then Adiza Javi's work here on the right is at the NYSATA Legislative Student Art Show. It's a virtual exhibit, and it's celebrating the Youth Art Month. So great work coming out of our students. March, we had 2 activity nights. We had 7th and 8th grade activity nights, always a great thing, except for when the fire alarm goes off at 8 o'clock. But hey, like, we did it, and it was good. The kids were fantastic. But the snow cones are always a favorite. We had a new DJ for the last 2 ones, so a lot more dancing. Great music and always fun. And I have to tell you that the parents are amazing. Like, we couldn't do it, especially the other night when the fire alarm did go off. There's no way we could have done it without all of their help and support. And then just kind of wrapping up with TCMS continuing to grow as a community. You'll see on the left there that we have Kenzie. Kenzie is a student who is deaf. And every week she goes on the morning show and she shares a sign of the week to teach all of the other students in the building different signs. And it's actually like, it's heartwarming. You'll see kids walk in the hall and they stop her and they want to practice the sign, and she's using it with students in the cafeteria and having lunch. And this was all, she wanted to do this. She also started our ASL club at TCMS, and she really runs it. The adult just kind of sits there, but she's teaching everybody, and I just, you know, she's just such an advocate and a mover and a shaker, and she's going to do amazing things, but we're all learning so much from her. Ms. Rodonis has got some baby chicks going on, and if anybody knows my story with birds, this was a really big thing for me to be holding that bird, but it was very, very cute, and just a nice way, sunlight coming in the room, and the kids to just take a deep breath. We've got our students in Wynn on Fridays. Every once in a while we'll have a game day and playing some Uno with Miss Ellis there, and then celebrating our monthly dress-up days for student council. I couldn't get through without just putting this up there. I didn't have to say anything more. I'll just leave it at that. Mr. Tappan. And then April's another busy month for us. Obviously, we have spring recess coming up. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Mr. Thomas and Ms. Paddock are with about 200 7th graders in DC right now. Off to a great start. Looks beautiful there. The cherry blossoms are in bloom. So I think they've got a great time. Sports are starting soon. We've got our big spring dance, spring semi-formal for 8th graders coming up. And the marking period ends very soon, April 18th, and we are also moving into state testing season, which everybody loves. So.
I just don't think there's a lull period of time in the school year. Every time each of you come up, there's 1,000 things on your thing, so great work. Any questions from the board? No. Yes, Susan, Matt can go next. Matt Tappan, you're next.
Sorry, Tom.
I see how this is going, Board President. Oh, that is me. I don't know what's that. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Matt.
Hi. So,
Our own celebrity.
lots of, I don't know who this person is, but I'll need to look him up and see how it is and see if I can impersonate him and make some money. So a lot of things that we did at Council Rock are echoed through my colleagues. So we celebrate pretty big, some special times at St. Patrick's Day. Some people call it Leprechaun Day, but the leprechauns were very, very active, and we had many traps. This is just one example. Trying to trap the leprechauns. I had students at lunch who saw them and they knew they were up in our vents and they needed me to get on the cameras and watch for them. We also were treated to the Goodwin Academy of Irish Dancers in the morning. They, Lou might not want to hear this, they inaugurated our stage with their heavy clipping and clopping, and John is already working to repair the finish on our new stage. But it's being used, so that's the exciting thing. But a lot of great culture sharing on St. Patrick's Day. Speaking of culture sharing, Bojena Granat, who is one of our music teachers, received an amazing video. So she is originally from Poland. She has friends who are there who are also music teachers. So in Sonina, Poland, a group of young elementary students created a video learning English, singing Happy New Year. It came right at the turn of the new year, sent it to our students, and I'm not going to click on them, but if you need something to uplift you, the map of Poland, if you click on that, is the video from them, and the picture of Council Rock is our video response, and it was prepared, and just amazing, kind of expanding our walls and using our technology to create those partnerships outside of our community and give kids those amazing experiences. So kudos to them. Speaking of our connections to our community, Brighton Believes Day of Caring was celebrated throughout our building. Again, incredible thanks to our PTSA, because without them, especially at our level, we couldn't do what we do. They do amazing jobs putting packets together, putting projects together for teachers to be able to pick up, very user-friendly. Kids get to use them. So you can see examples of kids braiding. They're braiding for Lollipop Farm for the puppies, creating cards for our nursing homes, the residents in our nursing homes, to celebrate birthdays, to cheer them up, to just say that they have a friend in Brighton. And then our kindergartners created bags for a local Mercy House with toiletries. So just an amazing day. The kids really starting to learn to understand what it means to give back and understand who they're giving back to. So thanks again to the PTSA for helping to organize that. So Read Across America Day is usually very territorially French Road. We celebrate quietly. However, this year we expanded a little and had a really exciting opportunity from our Brighton High School Future Teachers Club. And they came over and read to our students, and they read in many different classrooms. And I think one of the things that, thanks to Mr. Green, who helped to organize that, and the high school who helped to do that, I think one of the things I took away from that day is they were my students now too. So these are students that I knew at Council Rock as they're getting up. So my first class is graduating this year. But to see the teachers reconnect with their kids, you know, the only negative that I have to running a primary school is that our kids leave us relatively young, and we don't sometimes get to see the fruits of our labor. So kids who may have struggled, or kids who may have been having some difficulties, several of them were part of this, and their teachers were so amazed to see them, so excited, and to hear that they had a part in inspiring them for a possible future connection as a teacher, and then their work with kids, and to provide them that opportunity, kind of in a setting to see, try it out, and then, you know, be able to build it. So it was really special, and something I hope that we can continue to find those opportunities for the kids, but also for my teachers, to be quite honest. So rethinking math practices, Stefano Monachino has run a lot about making thinking visible, and how to get kids to show their work. This is a Liz Files class, and they are using wipeable markers on some of the glass surfaces, and then having kids walk around and talk about it. So it's just a different avenue But this is actually the math. We have a math emoji problem of the month that our math specialists put up in the main hallway, and kids are working on it. It's a little bit of algebra, a little bit of challenge, and teachers provide support. But this is like, I walked through the hallway and I had to stop because I was like, what are you doing? You're writing on our windows. And they were like, no, Mr. Tappan, it wipes off, don't worry. So just another way our kids are learning, growing, and showing their thinking in different ways.
Yeah, I think Lou just breathed a sigh of relief.
It's wipeable, and we talk very clearly about which markers can go on, and this is only with adult supervision.
Mr. Ravelli really appreciated it.
Yes, he did. He did. And then in our PE classes, again, connections outside of our school. Both Kristen and Max, our PE teachers, are great at bringing people in. And this is a local karate, dojo that is teaching kids about karate, taking them through, understanding the tenets of it, and really giving them the strength within it. And the kids have really responded and loved it. So it's been great. So coming up, report cards. So report cards are actually live online right now. However, they are coming home paper tomorrow. So if you haven't been able to access it, don't worry. If you need access, we can figure it out. But we are sending paper report cards home. Friday begins our vacation, spring recess. And then in April, we have our ice cream social open houses and book fairs. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're trying to really kind of make a schedule within there. So the library will be opened a little bit earlier than the rest for people to come and shop in the book fair. And then classrooms will open at 6:30 along with the ice cream. And then dancing will happen in the gym. And then a little bit after our classrooms close, we'll keep the ice cream going so that people have a chance. This is all feedback from families and from staff about how we can do this a little bit better, just to ensure everybody has those chances to get to all those places. Tuesday is kindergarten, Wednesday is first grade, and then Thursday, the 20th of April, is second grade. And then a reminder that Friday the 28th, we'll be engaging in some really important work at Council Rock and across the district for our superintendent's conference day. Any questions?
No, thank you very much for the update.
Absolutely. You want someone to come up now?
I'm contemplating. Sure. Tom Hall, please. Best for last, you said, Tom.
Someone else said that. Would never. Oh, well, good evening, everybody. Last board meeting, I did highlight a couple of things with the trips, more on the Israeli exchange that we've had since 2015. Tonight, I just wanted to share some additional things about our German and Spanish exchanges. Our German exchange has been in progress, if you weren't aware, since 1980. Wow. It started with Sue Gillespie at a German school in Bremen, and it's the same school we've been visiting ever since. 21 German students traveled to Germany this year with Mr. Schindler, Mr. Smith, and Dr. Geiger, who's our German teacher at the high school, for a 10-day tour of a variety of places in Germany, but mostly Berlin and Bremen, where they stayed. They got to see the Brandenburg Gate. The wonderful thing about these exchanges is the students from Germany, or if they're here, our students, get to go with the exchange students on various trips they take and share the culture, share the life, share the sights with our students. And when our students are there, they're trying to talk German or French or Spanish, and when they're here, they're trying to talk English. So it's a great opportunity, and again, I talked to a lot of principals in my Monroe County group. There's very few schools right now that are actively still going abroad. And I want to thank you, and I know our kids are really appreciative to be able to have those opportunities. Various sites, famous buildings, and they spent an entire day in Bremerhaven, which sounded wonderful, touring and various museums and just seeing kind of the sights. And they welcomed 30 students here last week. They were here visiting us, and they left, and they're safely back at home. Just another great year, and 2 more years we'll be back on a 2-year schedule. So in 2 years we'll be hosting them again and going to Germany. In Spain, we have a new city. We were in Sevilla Prior to, we were in Madrid, Barcelona. Now we have a partnership we're really trying to get going with Oviedo, Spain, which is in the northwestern section of Spain, northwest of Madrid. 17 students traveled with Ms. Rivera, Ms. Crawley. This was the first time that we actually were in Oviedo. They were in Madrid and Barcelona just prior to moving to Oviedo. And they did get a FC Barcelona game. So that's football club game. It's not American football, it'd be soccer in America, Dr. McGowan. And, but they were very excited to see it. And just, it was a pretty cool night to see Europeans enjoying the soccer game and the Spaniards. When they got to Oviedo, this school really went all out. They had us at the mayor's office. The mayor spoke to them. I actually got on a video conference. I was stuck here in Rochester over the February break, but I got to communicate with their principal, the mayor, and just introduce myself, and we're looking to start a partnership. They will be traveling to us, hopefully, in the fall of 2023. First time ever, Colegio Meres. We haven't had an exchange come here from Spain since the fall of 2000, which is quite remarkable when you think about it. So this will hopefully be a great tour and new partnership with this international school. Our French students, we had 43 here, 3 teachers here visiting as well, 30+ year exchange, and our students are heading out tomorrow for a 10-day excursion to France, landing in Paris, not there very long, and then heading to Rennes for the rest of their trip. So very excited about that, and we'll see more and hear more. So Brighton Believes Day of Caring, Brighton Believes Day at Brighton High School. We finally got to do what we've been doing for the last several years with Brighton Believes Day. We started with our food drive, and I just have to say quickly what we actually accomplished in about an hour of students taking time in an assembly day with 1,000+ students participating. 750 donated items. That was, a 10-day trip, or 10-day experience, I guess. But within the hour, 300+ birthday cards and craft gift bags for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Golisano Children's Hospital, 300 Red Cross Hero Comfort Kits for military veterans, 450 pairs of no-slip socks for Owens House and Rochester General Hospital, 150 letters to our servicemen and women all over the world through the Million Thanks Project, and then 800 lunches, bagged lunches with peanut butter and jelly, sandwiches, cookies, chips, apples, and water, all bagged up and put together by our students. This takes months and months of planning. Our PTSA is a huge help, but we also have advisors, clubs who get involved, and it's a huge building-wide event. These are the pre-planning meetings, and then putting together 88 homeroom boxes with all of their supplies. This is a picture that Dan Goldman sent me from the upper deck of the gym. Hundreds of kids making, this is just one section, there's another section, just making the sandwiches, putting the bags together, a huge assembly line. Quite a sight to see, and the Open Door Mission was so happy to get those bags. There's the kids making the socks, the Get Well cards, and the lunches being prepared. So just an absolute wonderful day. And then we had some students as well as advisors who dropped off, this particular, the lacrosse team dropping off the craft kit bags at the Golisano Children's Center. And these are all the clubs and their advisors who participated. Every year it's a little different, which is amazing. I put out an invite, and clubs, sports teams, service clubs will put in and say, yeah, we'd love to sponsor an event this year. And it's not been the same since we started. So different clubs, different sports teams, we try to get a mix. Sometimes we get more VPA events, but it's just a fantastic opportunity at the high school. Dodgeball game, the high school will be better. We'll come back better next year. Our students got to play against several different staff members. You see the Bruin made a showing there as well. This is, the senior team who came in, I think, third place? Second place. Oh, they came in first, sorry. And Council Rock.
So scary.
Yeah.
Oh.
Of
course
the seniors came in first. So you can see Council Rock over here came in huge numbers. Nice job, Matt, for rallying the troops. French Road, Dr. Rio. They'll come back as a big showing next year, I'm sure. But fantastic K-12 community event. If you were there, it was fantastic. Kids, I will give a big kudos to our senior class and Jeff Green and their advisors, Ms. O'Shea and Ms. Vanstrom. They really planned a night where they involved the Council Rock and French Road kids in activities. They're running around the gym, playing various games, dance-off competitions. It was a huge community event. I mean, everybody was involved, K-12, and it was just so much fun and heard a lot of great things. And we raised several $1,000s for the senior class, but also part of that money, I think it was 20% of that money goes to the PTSA support fund to support students in scholarships. So what a great night. And finally, as I went in order of what we've done, we've made history. We went on our first historically black college trip with other Rochester area high schools. Jeff Green, myself, and Ms. Stern, one of our counselors, took 21 of our Brighton students to Washington, D.C. We had 21 students, 3 chaperones. We were there for 3 days, 2 nights. Toured various sites in D.C. This is in front of the White House in one of the evenings. And then our major part of the tour is to tour different universities. So we went to Howard University on the first day, Morgan State University the second day. This is a picture of us all around at Howard. And we actually are with 3 or 4 other schools, mostly university prep from the city. And we had students from Penfield and Irondequoit with us there as well. And something that was exciting at Howard is when we first got there, I was able to call one of our former grads. So this is Alana Britton on the left. She's a 2019 grad. She met us right as we got off the bus on the quad and basically was our tour guide with her new boyfriend, who I met for the first time. Maybe it could be her fiance at some point. The kids just lit right up when they heard that Alana was a Brighton grad. She is graduating from Howard this year. She's majoring in finance and accounting, and her boyfriend is in a similar major. Wonderful tour, great Q&A, and they were in the bookstore with us at the end, and I just want to thank her and Aaron, her boyfriend, for giving us such a great tour of Howard. We got to Morgan. We actually got to sit down with a couple of students who were it was a Q&A for almost 45 minutes. Kids were just asking questions and getting a feel for the campus. We had a great tour, and they had a wonderful lunch in their cafeteria. So students came back very jazzed, excited, and Jeff's kind of following up with them this week about their experience and how we can maybe make the trip better next year. And I want to thank Brighton Student Alumni Association, PTSA, Brighton Education Fund, and the Nancy Beck Fund, all local groups here who sponsored the entire trip for our students, which was quite amazing and gave everybody an opportunity and didn't cost them a cent. And it was just such a great opportunity, and look forward to doing it again next year. Lots of activities coming up for the end of the year, and I'll just highlight the conference day we have at the end of April and our next play, the Children's Hour, which is coming up at the end of April. Any questions?
A lot going on, and congratulations, and thank you also to Jeff, who I think is back in the corner there on that trip. It just sounds like it was absolutely outstanding, so thank you very much. Questions from the board for Tom?
I can only make a comment. I went on the Bremen trip 34 years ago now, and the pictures, throwback, has not changed much, and we went on basically the same excursions and things for a couple of them. It was really nice to see.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Up next is the consent agenda. We have a few fundraising activities. Again, great opportunities to eat, either at Five Guys on April 18th in support of the Speech and Debate Club, or in support of Student Council ordering some popcorn online. Also, the Service Club at TCMS is doing a clothing collection, as you can see here, March 27th through June 16th. We have a series of gifts here, and as is our tradition, and I know there are a lot of them, we're going to read them all real quick. We are just so grateful to be the benefactor from so many different people who think of our kids and think of ways to improve their experience. I'll first note that letters D through I are all gifts, and you saw some pictures that Tom put up there in regards to the Brighton Believers projects, but I'll read them. First, from the Brighton Field Hockey Booster Club in the amount of $250 for the Brighton Believes project. A gift from the American Fruit and Vegetable Company for the donation of apples for the Brighton Believes Service Project. From the Mid-State Bakery Distributors for the donation of bread. And of course, with bread, you need peanut butter and jelly, so thank you to Palmer's Food Service for their donation of peanut butter and jelly for the project. A gift from PepsiCo for the donation of chips for the project. And then finally, a gift from the regional distributors for the donation of paper supplies for the various Brighton Believes service projects. So as Tom pointed out on one of his last slides, and as is noted here, some great gifts from the community and businesses to help it all happen. I'll also quickly note, gift in the amount of $300 from the Brighton Education Fund for the author visit of Kelly Baptist on May 17th to TCMS, in the amount of $3,325.50 for the author visit of Jerry Kraft on June 7th to TCMS. A gift from Jim and Lindy Kraft for the donation, and I'm going to try this, of the Bach-Selmer trombone to the Brighton Central School District Music Department. And then finally, a gift from the Friends of the Arts in Brighton in the amount of $1,770 in honor of Dr. Michael Leaner's retirement, to be used to fund student scholarships for summer arts. Just a really impressive list of things from our community and business partners, so we are greatly appreciative of that. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Susan, seconded by Julene. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are prepared to adjourn. Any final comments, Dr. McGowan?
No, I just, reflecting on the reports given by the principals and, with the executive budget proposal, it's such a great example of the statement that is made by the budget to support all that work that's done. I think it's just a great reminder of what happens for people, and I think the beginning of the meeting and the report out on the forum and the feedback to you is a great reminder of the work that still has to be done and be supported by that budget as well. And that just enhances all of the work that is reported out in the principal's report. So thanks for that. And we have, over the next several weeks, we'll be able to announce the results of searches for an assistant principal at 12 Corners Middle School and the principal at French Road. Really excited about both, and we're down to final candidates at this point. And like I said, I think great additions to the team, and we'll be thrilled to be sharing that with you in the coming weeks.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Julene,
Second.
seconded by Eleanor. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
This has been a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.